Christianity has been so all hushy and quiet. People are afraid to tell like your friends or coworker, I'm a Christian, Whereas in other parts of the world now, there's so many other things that's coming up, and people are like just bashing Christianity to the point that Christianity lost its voice, and people are just so ashamed to be
Persecution,
Christians.
man.
Persecution, and like the fact that society has come to a point that now it's like almost beyond no return. So this channel is just there to help strengthen the community. And yeah. We have Jack with Ben and we have Paul. So we're gonna talk about our walk in as Christian guys and our challenges. So maybe we can
Right.
kick the ball rolling, having Ben to talk more about his Christian faith and why he's still a Christian and the kind of challenges he faces at work and his daily life.
I always try to come up with good solutions for the customers we're consulting with, and I make it. I try to be very thorough in what I do, and yeah, I always try to be fair and accommodating to the customers, and that's primarily how I kind of live out my faith there, and I like I'm courteous to my coworkers, and like it's not hard. That part's not hard. Like I really enjoy where I work and the people there. So yeah, um, it's about it for me, Jack.
Cool. What about you, Ben?
Before I was unemployed a week ago, I actually work as I'm a senior lighting artist at an animation studio. And yeah, and the crazy thing is that actually, I think throughout the time of, my existence in the company, I've had a lot of Christians even just in and out of the studio, which is kind of crazy. And I just got to meet some of them. Unfortunately, I felt like I could have done more. Maybe establish some kind of, prayer group or fellowship, even like a Bible study. But I just felt like, maybe I was a little bit too cowardly. So if I was to go back there, maybe do a little bit differently or encounter new, Christians in a new workplace, maybe I'll have a sense of better conviction to do something like that. But yeah, I don't, and I still think that there's not an accident why God puts me in these places to do this. I'm pretty like a little bit different than what I guess what Paul does, in a way where I'm kind of in people's, I don't know, I'm not really in their faces, but I'll pray during a meal. Sometimes I'll intentionally drop like Sunday, if they ask me what I did, I say I went to church,
Yeah.
hung out this week, and it just it's just sort of the way I am, because if I don't do that, I personally get conscious about hermiting, and then it becomes a habit. Then I know that if that's the case, I'm like, well, then why am I living my life in this sort of like, why am I hiding this? What's a big part of me? What makes me a me?
Right.
Why am I hiding that? Right? Yeah. So yeah, that's in a really brief nutshell. There's no crazy and more things to say, but that's a nutshell.
All right, cool. We'll have more exploration of this topic in the next podcast. But for myself, Jack, like I'm a tradesperson, so I am a chef. I cook for a lot of people, fine dining. But I find my challenges in my work is that people are always in our line of work is people are really hot tempered and in a really heated environment, and like after work, people are just really exhausted, and sometimes depression hits, and because you're always on the go and in high temperature environment and always rushing and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see Christianity actually manifest in my workplace, but there are ways, and we'll talk more in the next podcast. And we
Should not be taken more seriously, because obviously, Jesus said that, uh, you know, uh, things of the earth will last, but His words will always last forever, right?
Mhm.
And of course, the flowers and the grass wither away, but my words will, live for through eternity, right? Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not really good with my scripture word for word, but I'm heavily paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So I thought that I think a lot, and it's a lot of a journey, because I realized I'm not here by accident. God could have made me a fly, He could have made me a pig, I could have been something else, but
Yeah.
He made it very clear that I am a human being with a conscience, with a who live and breathe and eat, who now I've come to realize that my sole purpose is to worship God through my time, my money,
Right.
my talents, all of that, right? So to me, I think my Christian walk is very important. Even if, say, right now I'm currently not employed, it's something that's still valuable. The fact that despite all these external circumstances, internally, I feel like God's, given me a sense of not just peace, but a deep joy. I think as Jack was mentioning about how, we could potentially be walking through the nine fruits of the spirit. I think joy is no accident why it's second in the list, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, to me, uh, you know, not just like being Christian, because sometimes people can just be Christian, sure, but you gotta do Christian too. You gotta be able to, be that outside of a church setting, right? I personally don't like it when I hear, when Christians behave like one, inside the confines of a church wall. But as soon as you step out, it's a whole different person, right? So, maybe it's a word of encouragement out there to those who are in a church, or even who are, maybe wavering or not really sure about their faith, that, go live it out strong, because at the end of the day, yeah, that's the only thing that matters, and it's the only thing that you're going to feel that's real in your life. I don't know if I really answered the question, but that's my temporary spiel. So, yeah.
It's really good. I like it. Like this, like nowadays, I find, okay, my own personal take on Christianity is, if you're a Christian, like you, what's the point of coming to church and like on Sundays and waking up early and being among people, and on Monday or Tuesday you're just back to your normal self, Like you're wasting time. Like why bother? Just might as well just be worldly. Being a Christian is really hard these days, and like if you're not fully convicted or you're not, sure if Christianity is the thing, then you shouldn't even be bothering like wasting your time. Of course, I'm not saying like those that who are new to the faith or trying to understand more about Christianity to not come to church, but I'm saying for those who are like maybe been 2 years or 3 years a Christian in a Christian circle, but they're still lukewarm. They're not sure what they really want. They don't even read the Bible. They don't even write
Mm-hmm.
notes when the pastor is preaching, and they don't even like internalize like the faith, the walk by themselves. So what's the point of coming to church then? Like are you just there to warm the seats and going through the motion of church? There's no point. That's not a true Christian. But I find
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Christianity can only be strengthened if people are real and honest with each and every one about their faith. So if you're not a strong Christian, you don't know things, admit it, and have the desire to learn more about the faith, like learn more about the Bible, the books. Have an actual Bible. Write notes about things. If you have question, ask, and not just. It's kind of sad because most churches these days you don't see anyone with actual Bibles, or they don't even take notes. But if you go to school, what do you learn in school? You have to take notes. You have to write notes. You have to write pointers down because we don't have super memory. We can't remember everything. If you don't write this
Especially
notes,
when you get older.
yeah, exactly. And then like if you don't
Yeah.
internalize, you're gonna fall asleep. That's why people fall asleep in lectures. But in churches, it's the same. People are falling asleep, and when you ask a question, no one get revelations because they're not spending their time, they're not spending the effort, and they're not shaking themselves up whenever they fall into this comfort zone where they're just chilling with their friends and stuff. It becomes more like a membership going to a gym than actually walking strong with God, because Christianity is real. Like God really loves you. It's a living word thing. That's miracle when you walk close with God. God wants to help you, but the only problem is that many people fall astray to this comfort mentality. Like, oh, I know that person. I know this preacher. Blah blah blah. Come in, clock out. It's not like work. So I don't know, but I find that Christianity for me, like recently, I'm drawing back close to the faith because I realized I got a huge revelation, like the amount of like years I've spent away from actually knowing God. So yeah, that's quite a mouthful, but yeah, that is personally my journey, this moment, this season.
I think a lot of people have the same kind of sentiments, right? Like there's just something, hollow about attending church and um, sort of compartmentalizing our lives, right? Where our passions and meaning, what really has life, really productive in life, right? Like
Yeah,
thing I've been thinking about recently is like the idea that like I think there's a danger of always be conscious of our Christian conduct, right? Like
For
you know
sure.
yeah, like and a lot of preachers will always say like getting to church on time, and like
Yeah.
you know are you greeting all the new people when they come here, and like during the week do you do devotions in the morning, and like in a sense I appreciate it, right? There's a certain discipline to what we do, right? And to our lifestyle, but at the same time there's a danger of it kind of turning into a sort of only being conscious of those responsibilities, right? Our duties, and then once that's done, we don't really try to go any deeper into anything.
Well, essentially, for sure. I mean, if you don't mind me interjecting here, you're right. It becomes a list of it's a checkbox. Once you do all those things, you check those boxes, then you think, okay, the sermon's like the thing. It's almost like the sermon's a bonus. If your brain is in tune, great. But if you checked out, hey, whatever, I did all these things, right? And I think without dipping too much into the Catholic realm, that's just how it is, right? But I was dissecting what you're saying, and it's very true, but I think the real core issue here being is that it's a heart issue. It's a heart matter, because I'm guilty of it too. I mean, it's actually really good that you're really trying to understand and be empathetic about newcomers or those who are very still new to the idea of Jesus. And so how would they dissect, how would they absorb, how can a baby drink, how can a baby eat bread when they can't even drink milk first, right? So it's sort of the same idea. Hey, that's quoted from the Bible, It is, right? And it's crazy. Like, to think that even I'm doing this, never in my life did I think I'd be quoting Bible if just I'm rolling on my tongue, right? Even though it's not, as blasphemous as it says, it's almost become my new version. But of course, I can't do that. At some point, I start memorizing this stuff. Anyway, jokes aside, to be we're to be mindful of that, but I don't think it's our job, because, like I mentioned before, to backtrack. It's a heart matter, right? Even now, it's people, why do they come late to church? Why are they not doing this? Why is it? I think a lot of it boils down to their own personal relationship with God and how serious they are with it. I mean, I'm guilty of it before, when I was always late, when I was always doing that. But then as when I took God more seriously, and God was trying to, pardon my language, but when God was tuning my ass up, I started to really pay attention, right? And to the point where, I think sometimes I do feel weird. I'm like, man, even at 10:30, I feel like I'm still coming to church a bit late, right? So it's a heart matter. It's a heart issue. I think it's between them and God, sort of how much they value their walk with Christ. Right?
It's very easy for that to become a checkbox item, right? Force yourself to go to church early. But then once you force yourself, you check that off the box, and you no longer think about why that's a problem. Why are you going to church late? What is it that's causing you to go to church late, right? To pointing fingers, I'm like, yo, if this bro or this girl's got some family things they got to take care of in the morning, that just absolutely has to be on a Sunday morning, and they unfortunately have to go to church late. Okay, but I guess the saying goes is that it's better late than never, right? So I think that's in some way merits that. But I mean, of course, if it was a really I think a really good pastor back in the Vancouver area when he used to minister there. I think he still is in Abbotsford. Anyway, I was listening to something he said on his daily sermon, and he said something. You know what? I think he's still doing it. Yeah, he's going strong. I think God's really, there's no reason why he left his old church to be in this ministry now, because I think he's more effectively even put to use even further, because there's no arguing. John Neufeld is an excellent expositional biblical teacher. There's no question there, right? So the reason why I mentioned that, because Jack was talking about how God's not it's God's not petty. This is right now in our season. And then Pastor John said this right. He said, God, this is God's a period of grace. This is his grace period. Whether or not whether or not you're getting a free ride because of the blood of Christ, or you're waiting for the message to be sent to you. This is the time of grace, because once judgment comes, that period of grace is over. Judgment is upon us, right?
With that, I'll give it a wrap up, and thank you guys for listening to Go Talk Podcast. And you have me, Jack. And you have Ben, and you have Paul signing off, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Have a good one. Stay frosty, folks.